Hello and welcome to 21st Century Vitalism. This is a podcast exploring how we can best maintain a sense of energy, inspiration, and wakefulness while living with the uncertainties of the modern age. My name is Brett Kane, and I'll be your host on this journey as we have a multidisciplinary conversation with a wide variety of people from all over the world. While many of the guests on this platform come from wildly different backgrounds, in my view, they each hold a piece to the puzzle of how we can best navigate this ever-changing landscape of the 21st century. And this is our 100th episode, which is incredibly hard for me to believe. So I want to start this episode by just offering a very heartfelt thank you to everyone who has tuned in over these past 4 years. It has been such a tremendous honor to host these conversations, and it's offered me this opportunity to connect with people who have inspired me for years. And I'm also very thankful for the people that I've met through this platform who I didn't know prior. It has not ceased to amaze me just how many spectacular people there are out there who are really committed to the principles of cultivating this visceral and vivid sense of aliveness despite the rocky terrain that we are moving through as a people. I will say that after 100 episodes of doing this show, including the hundreds of hours of studying, preparing, editing, promoting, the thing that strikes me the most is that there are just so many ways to cultivate this quality of aliveness. It really seems like there's as many ways up the mountain as there are individual people. And if I were to take just one thing from doing this show, it's that each of our unique paths through life is valid. If we just commit to bringing our full attention and curiosity to what draws us in, I am thoroughly confident that it can become a path toward wholeness. And that's going to be something that I continue to explore as we invite people on from just totally different backgrounds. And hopefully we can touch on that fundamental essence of what it means to be alive and awake in these times. And I think today's episode is a great example of that, because joining us on the show is UK-based freestyle hip-hop dancer Yudat. Nickel is the founder of the dance school Beyond the Moves, which emphasizes the importance of mindset in the world of freestyle dance. In this conversation, we explore Nickel's story of how he found his way to dancing and ultimately how he's using it as a practice to deepen his connection to some inherent positive qualities that we all share. We also chat on how to find your creative voice, the importance of discipline, and my favorite, battle culture. This is something that I have wanted to explore quite a bit on this show, but it's hard for me to find other dancers who share this holistic, lifestyle-oriented mindset. So this was something that I really enjoyed, and I really recommend checking out Nickel's platform at beyondthemoves.com or his Instagram with the same name. He's got a steady drip feed of inspirational content and cool performance videos that can keep you engaged and connected to a community that is focused on dance and celebration and expression. It is just such a cool thing that he has going on over there. So this was really fun for me, and especially as the 100th episode, to have something that is focused on celebration and joy and creativity. It was just a really good time. So if you want to support this show, head on over to patreon.com/21st Century Vitalism and consider becoming a patron. Any little bit helps me keep the lights on and the wheels moving. If money is not a thing, that is okay. You can also subscribe on YouTube, follow us on Instagram, and like us on Facebook. All of those things help in equal measure. So I see each and every one of you whenever you interact with the platform, and I appreciate you. I'm sending you good vibes as we get into the new year. That's going to be it for today. Again, thank you so much for 100 episodes. Thank you so much for tuning in. Without further ado, let's welcome on Yudat. Okay, Nickel, we are now live. As always with this show, I just want to start by saying thank you so much for giving me some of your time. How are we doing today?
Yeah, I'm doing really well. Thanks for having me, Brett.
Yeah. This is a topic that's near and dear to my heart. We're going to be talking about dance, and it's something that has been deeply meaningful for me in my life. And when I'm able to connect with other people who have found a lot of meaning in it, it's just, there's a good resonance there. So, I want to start this conversation by just kind of getting a little bit of your story of what brought you into the world of dance and, I guess what were all the twists and turns that got you to where you are today?
Yeah, I mean, if you had told me when I was younger that I would be a dancer, I would probably not believe it, because I was born in Haiti. I was born and raised there. Then I moved to Paris when I was 13, and I started dancing when I was around 16 years old. So most people would consider that, starting quite late, but yeah, I mean, it just came to me basically. Basically, the way it happened is I used to play soccer in Europe. You say soccer. But no, in Europe we say football, but
Yeah.
yeah, just to make sure. So yeah, I used to play that, and every time that I would go play football, there was a dance studio nearby. And one day I got curious and I was like, hey, let me go have a look and see, what's going on there. And I went there and I was looking at the dancers repeating the choreography. And then I asked the teacher if I wanted to do this, where do I start? How can I, join? And he said, hey, if you want to give it a try, come next Saturday. And yeah, just give it a try. You can try for free and we see how it goes. And I said, okay, no problem. Next Saturday I came and now I'm still dancing.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah.
So what style of dance was that, and what style of dance would you consider you doing now?
So my main style is hip hop. So this is how I started dancing, hip hop choreography, and also freestyle. But then over time, I get inspired from so many, other styles. So my main style is still hip hop, but I'm more specialized into freestyle. So freestyle is really what's yeah, drive me the most, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. So there might be some people who are listening who don't really know what freestyle is. Could you maybe talk a little bit about what differentiates that from maybe the more choreographed versions? Or
Yeah. So Eh, choreography is, I think, is what most people are familiar with. It's basically you go to a class and you learn someone else's choreography. Basically, you are repeating his or her movements, right? But freestyle is the total opposite. It's basically you don't know what's gonna happen. You play the music and you start dancing and you express yourself. So that's I would say the beauty of it is basically to discover yourself in the moment as well, because once again it's freestyle. You don't necessarily know what's going to happen, right? So over time you develop, patterns and techniques that you do on a regular basis, and then yes, you will end up doing certain things maybe several times, but most of the time you don't necessarily know what's going to happen in the moment. So yes, my main side is hip hop freestyle, and hip hop freestyle within it. Over time I got inspired from other style as well. Yeah.
yeah, that's seems like such like a vulnerable place to be putting yourself in, especially if you're doing a performance where other people are watching. Do you deal with a lot of nerves in that kind of situation, or how do you navigate just I don't know what I'm about to do?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yes, yes. I think at any stage we do have some sort of stress going on, but it's more a matter of understanding how to manage it. So it's not going away, but we usually get better at managing it over time. Yeah.
Yeah. It seems to me, at least from the videos that I see, whenever I'm watching someone do freestyle, it seems like the environment that it happens in, it kind of has like an underground quality to it. Is that something that you feel is true? Is there just kind of that element to it?
Yes, definitely. Definitely. I mean, there's some sort of rawness, to freestyle, and the fact that it's also underground. I mean, a part of it starts, in the underground scene is also because there's a lot of some sort of competition going on, like battles, and back then, before actual contests and competitions, people used to just, go in the club and face each other, basically, one crew against another one, and yeah, that's how it used to be. And then now it's you have that format where it's more like an event. You've got, competition, and people are coming, and they just, freestyling, and we call it battles, right? But yeah, basically that's how it is basically.
Yeah. So even, this is, you see the battle kind of culture and a lot of different things other than just dance. There's actual like hip hop battles and, I guess what's like the proper like framework you have when you're going into a battle? Is there a sense of actual kind of like aggression with the other people, or is there kind of a collaborative kind of like we're actually just motivating each other to be better versions? And is there kind of like an across the aisle kind of appreciation, or I guess how do you navigate being in the battle scene?
Yeah, that's a good question. Actually, I would say the mentality evolve over time because I would like to probably mainly talk about my perspective of it and how I lived it so far. So when I first started, battle was a way for me to kind of make a name for myself in the scene. So I saw it a lot as a place where I have to do something right. So therefore, the moment I would do a battle, the competitive mindset was very present. So I would see the person in front of me as an opponent, and the only goal is to you know do better, perform better than that person. But obviously, this is very subjective because you've got three judges usually who are judging, and in the end, it doesn't really mean anything because you're gonna be dancing in front of someone for maybe just 1 minute and one round, and in one round and 1 minute, this doesn't say a lot about your dance. So it's just in the moment, winning or losing. It's not really a big deal, but we make a big deal out of it at the beginning. At least me, I used to make a big deal out of it at the beginning. But now, fast forward now, when I do a battle, I see way more like a collaborative aspect to it, meaning I'm still conscious that I am doing a battle, and obviously I would like to pass the next round and the next round and the next round. But most importantly, the experience that I'm getting from that moment is way more valuable for me now. But
Yeah.
I could also understand that someone who's just started, they don't necessarily have that mentality because they are in the process of, making a name or, yeah, winning battles and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems it's such like an interesting thing with like an expressive art like this where it's something that is very kind of liberating and it's really kind of for you to be in a situation where you could definitively lose at an art is something that like wow, there's like this very clear failure state. And I'm sure as somebody
Yeah.
who's been in the scene, you've probably experienced failure. How do you relate to that as it's like this is my expression, this is who I am, this is I'm putting my life energy into this and now you don't like it and you said this guy's better
Yeah.
than me. Like that's just such a hard thing to navigate.
Yes, yes, it is. I mean, it is until you realize that it doesn't really matter, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, but at the beginning again, it can play with your mind. And especially, we start at a pretty young age, doing this. So there's a lot of self-esteem going on, through this as well. So I would say if we are not careful or if we are not well surrounded, the battle scene can also kind of have a negative effect in our mindsets over time, especially if you struggle to pass the pre-selections and most of the time you don't go really far and you end up not having the type of recognition that you would like to after years and years doing that, it can start playing with your mind. So that's why my approach now with my teaching is something that is very related to mindset and all of that. I think that's one of the reason why I naturally navigate no naturally going toward that direction. But yeah, I would say yeah, it can be challenging mentally, yeah,
Yeah.
especially at a young age.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure. Especially when you don't know who you are, and then you have people telling you, well, who you are is less than this other person over there. It almost seems
Hmm.
like it'd be better to have a stronger sense of conviction in knowing who you are, but that's really hard to do when you're young.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But at the same time, it kind of also strengthen you. It's kind of build some sort of resilience over time as well. Yeah,
Yeah. Well, there's something, and this is something I've thought about often. And like failure isn't necessarily an end state unless you let it be. It's actually an opportunity to kind of course correct. And actually, in order to get good at something, you have to really embrace and be comfortable with failure. And, the stakes are a lot higher when you have people watching you and you have like recognition that you're looking for. But as long as you keep going, failure can actually be like a really great learning opportunity.
yeah, yeah, for real. And also, we it's just for the sake of giving it a label, we call it failure, but in the end, it's not really that, because we once again, like I said, in a battle scenario, usually you have maybe 1 minute to express yourself, and can you really compare 1 minute for against 5 or 10 years of practicing? Of course not. So yes, it's not really a failure, but it's just difficult to actually see it this way, especially at the beginning. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there's, the resiliency that comes with picking the pieces back up after you put your heart into something and then it kind of falls apart. And then I think that's when you also connect to that energy of like, this isn't really about really the other people. It's about how I'm feeling about it myself and the journey of getting there. The 5, 10 years it took me to get to this 1 minute of dance. It doesn't get rid of all of that and what that's meant to you. Um, yeah. So, the one thing that really drew me to your platform and is the main reason I reached out to you out of all the other dancers that were kind of coming into my algorithm was what you just mentioned with the mindset. There's something that I think you're tapping into that goes well beyond even the world of dance. So
Mhm.
with that, when did you start plugging into this notion that like the mindset is just as important as the physical movements that we're doing?
Yeah, I mean, I like to say that there are so many things that I do now. It's just because of dance. Like the passion that I have for dance naturally lead me to discover some other, things outside of dance that will ultimately help me in my dance journey. So back in 2012, I moved to London. So I started living in London, and one of my goals was I didn't want to keep on doing the same thing that I was doing as a dancer in Paris. So meaning doing battles, judging competitions, doing workshops, things like this. I still do them and I still enjoy doing them, but I wanted to have something that is more sustainable. So I started to trying to see how I could potentially basically become an entrepreneur in the dance industry, basically. And UK was a good place for that because at first, when you move from Paris to London, I quickly realized that there's a higher like an entrepreneurial mindset already established in UK back in 2012. So I started to try to understand how I could get to know what I want to do as an entrepreneur, but also as an artist. So the best thing to do is I started to read books, basically. Trying to find some books that could help me find basically my way. And then fast forwards, let's say 4 years later, so I started to do some events and also organizing a few things. And also at school, my background was in marketing and sales. Then I just pursued that journey. And at some points, the more I was reading those business books, for some reason I felt like yeah, it was all about the tactics, the techniques to for marketing and all of that. But there was a missing link. I did not know yet, but I could feel that there was a missing link because my mindset would always kind of hold me back. So this is where I started to trying to find some other books that could complement that. And now, to make a long story short, I would say the moment I started reading books like The Power of Now, also finding about Michael A. Singer, The Untitled Soul, and also Living. I think the other book is the Surrender Experiments. So these books have nothing to do with dance at all, but for some reason they resonate a lot with me, and they help me kind of understand way more what is going on inside me, basically. And it's almost like everything started to kind of make more sense to know how to navigate the dance world as well as my entrepreneurial journey, but with more peace of mind, I would say. And yeah, so this is where everything started to click. And nowadays there are three writers that I go back through their work once a year. Is Michael A. Singer, Eckhart Tolle, and Byron Katie, Loving
Mm.
What Is. So these are like, I don't necessarily need to read a lot of kind of a spiritual type of book. Once I find the people that resonate with me, I tend to kind of review their materials over and over again because every time I find more depth into them. So yeah, basically that's in a nutshell, that's what happened. Yeah.
Wow, amazing. Yeah, there's something about really sinking into one text or one author's view and then just like reiterating it and touching up on it. And I've noticed with books similar to that, that every time you read it, it's the same material, but it hits different because you're different. And that kind of stuff is applying to the way your mind works. And, I
Yeah.
would say that a lot of that is actually really similar to dance because to me, I mean, when you're working with unobstructing your mind, that's kind of like what dance is. You need unobstructed energy to be able to move through your body and express itself. And if you got blockages in here, it's going to affect your movements. And if you got blockages in here, it's going to affect your mind. And when you learn about
Definitely.
one, it applies to the other.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And it's and especially with freestyle, because freestyle for me, it's a bit like the dance is the parallel of the life, because you start dancing and you literally don't know what's gonna happen. you know just like you start your day, you you may have a plan of what you want to do, but you cannot know for sure exactly what's going to happen during that day. And your goal is to try to manage it as much as you can, and also embrace the unexpected things and all of that. So freestyle is similar in a way where I start dancing, the first 2 3 seconds, I don't know which song is gonna be played, right? The moment I hear the music, maybe I'm not gonna like the music, but still I need to find a way to just accept that fact that yeah, I don't like that music, but I'm still gonna have to dance on it and trying to do my best with it. So how do I do that? I need to find a way to manage. So it goes way beyond the movement, right? At some point, like the mindset has to contribute to what we are doing. So yeah, yeah. I can definitely relate to what you're saying.
Yeah, that's amazing. So I gotta ask about like being in the moment, say like you're not really feeling the song, you just started your minute. How do you what is your mind doing? Is it like what's the mental process versus the somatic just immediacy of what's happening? Like how do you kind of respond and actually freestyle in that way?
Okay. I, I, I actually have two answers for this.
Yeah, I love it.
The first one is basically that's the idea. When everything goes to plan, that's the best version of myself. So I would hear the music, I don't like it, and identify that I don't like that music, and I don't interact with that thoughts. I just let it pass, and I just, stay focused on my performance. When I manage to do this, sometimes I can even surprise myself on a music that I don't like necessarily, and still manage to do a good performance. Now, the second version, this one can happen sometimes as well, is you hear the music and for some reason the stress come and you start thinking about the fact that you don't like that music, and then your performance is not that good. So
Yeah.
yeah, this one can happen even with a lot of years of experience, but it's just a matter of um, knowing when it's happening. Even it's harder to readjust it later in the performance, but at least you can recognize that okay, it's happening and trying your best not to let that feeling get too overwhelmed. Yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing because we're talking about dance, but I swear, if I close my eyes, it's almost like I'm hearing a mindfulness instruction, just a meditation teaching. Like it carries over so perfectly to just navigating life, because there's going to be
Yeah.
moments in life, say you're on a date, you're really hopeful about it, and it's going really poorly, and it's like, well, what do you do in that situation? Like you can recognize it and try and not get overwhelmed, but, like I could see how learning that within dance can carry over. And that's another thing that I thought was really cool about your platform is the recognition. You've mentioned these qualities in some of your content where it was learning things like resiliency and adaptability and empathy, and then how that echoes into your life. So I do want to ask you about that in particular.
Mhm.
Yeah, how those three qualities right there, the resiliency, adaptability, and empathy. How did dance teach you these things in a way that applied to the rest of your life?
The resiliency part, for example, is definitely the journey of dancing, basically, in so many aspects of it. The first one I would say is I do organize several events a year in Paris and also in London. And usually we don't necessarily have, the budget to do everything the way we would like to do them, for example. But this doesn't usually stop us to to do what we envision to do anyway. And one of the best way that we do this is to use, not use, but more like to tap into the community. So we help each other basically for a lot of things to make kind of the cost of the event and things like this maybe cheaper. So that's one. Another one is just dancing in general, especially freestyle when you do battles and things like that. If you're not careful, this can make you feel less than you are, right? Because the moment you start, let's say, quote unquote, losing one, two, three competitions, and then it start playing with your mind, right? So if you're not careful, once again, you can easily start losing the joy of it, the joy of that passion that you had, for dancing. So but over time you realize that hey, I'm doing this because first of all I really love doing this, so I need to find a way to navigate that journey with less resistance. So yeah, these are the so many example like this where the resiliency aspect of dancing is very present. And now, when it comes to empathy, like I was saying, is overall we are a community, and dancers usually we kind of understand each other. I'm not saying that everyone gets on well and things like this, but the majority of us we do understand each other, and whenever it's possible, most dancers would be willing to support other dancers. So that's something that has also happened pretty naturally because most of the time all we have is us, especially dancers, because it's not like a huge industry like let's say the cinema world or music industry and things like this. But at the same time I feel like it's good that is this way, because in terms of audience it's pretty huge, but it's just in terms of like structure and things like that, it's not at the level of the music industry and all of that. But me, I'm not necessarily thinking, oh, it should be, in the level of the music industry and all of that. It's just we have our way of doing things. And a lot of it, I think, is also good. The fact that it's not like there isn't too much money involved to to drive our decisions. You see, so yes, it's a I think it's a good balance. It's just a different way to navigate this industry. So yeah, so that's why empathy kind of play his role very naturally as well. So yeah, and the other one was
Adaptability.
adaptability. Yeah, so I think it's kind of a merge all the things that I've been saying is adaptability even in the moment, just when you are freestyling. It's it's almost like having a superpower to make quick decision in the moment, because every single movement that you do counts, and the connection with the music in the moment counts, and the connection with yourself in the moment as well counts. And all these things you have to be present to be able to execute them to your best capacity. And yes, you definitely have to adapt in the moment as well. So yeah.
Yeah, well, I love that. This idea of like the empathy, and you touched on it with adaptability too. I feel like, especially as you're freestyling, it requires this sensitivity to the environment around you. It really brings your attention to the space that you're inhabiting. I mean, in order to move your body through space, there has to be a sort of kind of confidence and connection with the space around you. And I think that quality really helps you cultivate presence as well. The ability to be
Yeah.
fully with your body. I mean, whether thought is there or not there, it doesn't really matter because you are aware of just the entire space around you. And I think as somebody who has danced as well, I notice when I spend an hour, 2 hours dancing, when I move out of the space I've been in, it's really heightened. Everything just feels a lot more finite, just tactile. There's just a greater degree of communication between my body and what's going on around me as well, which means other people too.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, I mean, I like to say that my dance privacy is important. Basically what I mean by that is just having maybe at least 2 times per week where it's only myself and the music, and just dancing for like 1 hour or 1 hour and a half. And yeah, these moments are almost like a long meditation session,
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because I also feel the same way. I notice when I don't have people around me, my movement is it's just a lot more free and liberated, and I feel more graceful actually because I'm not thinking as much about what other people are perceiving of me. But, like I had mentioned, I am kind of a part of like the rave scene here in my local area. And I find that to be a really fascinating environment because it is dance music, but most people don't dance. A lot of people are really rigid and they just kind of like stand there. And I feel like that just like creates such an interesting environment. And then when I actually do find myself kind of like letting go and moving a lot more, it's just you can feel the space around my immediate vicinity shift a little bit. And I feel like it invites other people into it, but I am also just really sensitive to people's stagnancy and just like, wow, you're just really rigid right there. And this music is like pulsing and you're very obstructed. It's,
Mm. What is waves?
oh, are you saying raves?
Yeah, this
Oh,
is
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
go on.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, yeah, I think it actually even started in the UK, maybe. It's just kind of club music, dark room, lights, lasers,
Okay.
electronic music. A lot of people together, a lot of people on drugs. um,
But
you know,
usually in those environments, people are like dancing a lot, no?
Yeah, so I mean, it depends. There's like music festivals, which are weekends long, so it gives people more time to settle in. But typically, I mean, at least here, I'm in Michigan in the United States. It's a state that looks
Okay.
like a mitten. And like this side of the state is really kind of conservative, and it just kind of doesn't really have that mature of a dance community. So I think a lot of
Mm,
people just find themselves appreciating the environment, but not really engaging in the way that it has been engaged with for decades. So it just
right.
hasn't
I
really
see.
grown up to that yet.
Mm.
at least where I'm at.
Okay,
But
okay.
I live pretty close to Detroit, where techno was created, and like they get it over there for sure. It's very different when I go over there, and they've been doing
Right,
it since like the '70s, so it's the culture makes more space for it.
right. I see. Okay.
Yeah. But do you ever, find yourself at the club or anything similar to that? And, what's your kind of take on people, the general public's relationship to dance?
Um, I mean, clubbing is something that we used to do a lot when I started, but it was more like uh, that type of clubbing where you go and there's a lot of cipher going on, and you join the cipher, you dance. It's almost like a a practice session slash party at the same time. But
Yeah.
then when I go to normal clubs, I don't really dance that much. Like, meaning, most people wouldn't know that I'm a dancer, right? I would just, dance around and, yeah, just chilling on the side and wouldn't even get sweats. So I don't know, for some reason, maybe because I'm already a dancer and I do dance on a regular basis. So when I do go to a club, I act normal. Yeah,
Yeah.
for some reason. So yeah. Yeah, that's my relationship with clubs and like general clubs. And I don't even go that often, but yeah, whenever I do go, it's more like the way I behave now. But when we go to like club where people are more like ciphering and things like this, but then it's more like a big let's say celebration of freestyle. Basically, we just ciphering, dancing, and training at the same time, and exchanging with so many other dancers and things like that. And sometimes it can happen in an event before the battle happen, things like that. Yeah.
Wow, that sounds sick. That sounds great. Yeah. So, I wanted to shift to the notion of discipline. We're talking about a lot of these qualities that are really great to cultivate, but in order to do that, you have to practice. You have to really keep
Hmm.
working with it. And this is something I've seen you talk about a lot on social media. I think
Hmm.
discipline is something a lot of people struggle with. I mean, myself included, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. So, yeah, I guess what are some of your thoughts on the nature of discipline, how you can relate with it in a way that you can use it?
Yeah. I mean, for me, discipline is something that over time um, is best to find a system to make the work that you do almost effortless. And that's where you can, at least for myself, that's where I can actually have a proper discipline, because I don't necessarily like to force myself to do something. And therefore, if I'm going to force myself to do something, I like to know that, okay, this is going to be temporary. And over time, I will find ease in doing it. So, for example, to make something more practical, when it comes to my training, I would say the first 5 years of dance, I would pretty much dance every single day for hours and hours and hours. And I could afford to do that because I was, I was only 16 and I had pretty much nothing else to do besides going to school. So yeah, I would do that pretty much all the time. But then if you compare myself before and now I cannot afford to dance every single day and practice like 5 hours per day and things like that. I'm 37 now, and for me, it's requiring me to be way more strategic about my training. So I would say at the beginning, I would be more into the intensity mode, and now I'm more into the consistency mode. And sometimes I would switch from consistency to intensity for a short period of time. So this is where I have enough bandwidth, because I've been being consistent with my training. I have enough bandwidth to say, okay, now I need to push a bit harder. So intensity mode for a short period of time, and then I go back to consistency, because now I'm more prioritizing longevity than anything else, really, when it comes to dance. So this is where I kind of find the balance to have discipline. Discipline the way it looks for me now is no matter what, can I manage to have two training per week by myself? And I know if I can manage to do that, then I will consistently be progressing, right? So, but for some people at the early stage, they might be saying, yeah, but only two trainings per week is not enough. But now, if you compare someone who's going, let's say, beast mode for 6 months and burnouts, and someone else who've been doing two training per week for 1, 2, 3 years, almost effortlessly, that person in the long run will progress much more, right? So basically, that's how I approach, discipline today. Is mainly find the balance to do things that I enjoy doing on a regular basis and do this for a long period of time, right?
Yeah, I really like that perspective of like it's really hard to force yourself to do something, and the notion of like burnout. I think oftentimes we start something we're like, I really want to do this, I'm passionate, and then a couple weeks go by of really hitting it, and it's just like, oh man, I don't know if I can keep doing this because we weren't listening to ourselves and our bodies, and we were trying to push. And I think usually what motivates that is something more ego oriented rather than just
Yeah.
appreciating the practice and the process. It's usually because we like want to
Mhm.
get something out of it. So it's just motivations.
Yes, 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 yes. It's true. And I see it so many times with my students as well. At first, like the excitement, when they first join and things like that, and they really want to go all in. And sometimes I'm the one who say, hey, reduce, like reduce the pace because it's a marathon. Yeah, it's a
Yep.
marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, one of the other energies of discipline that I've personally struggled with, so maybe I'm going to rent you out as a teacher right now, but is boredom. Sometimes you like learn something, you're like, all right, I got to do this basic drill. I've done it 100 times, but I got to keep on doing it. But I'm bored. How do you relate to the energy of boredom when it comes to kind of being consistent?
Yeah, yeah, that's a great question. Actually, I think it's not boring anymore once you understand the power of it. Like once you understand, for example, the power of that drill or the power of that foundation that you are working on. The only challenge is to understand that foundation, how important it is. And for me, for example, at the beginning, it was difficult for me to kind of stick to those boring drills or boring work because I just wanted to play the music and have fun and dance. So when my teachers would tell me, work on that, I could I could not wait to just leave the class, finish the class, and then go home and practice by myself. You see what I mean? So, but now when I think back at it, I'm like, thanks God they did that because they kind of almost forced me to learn the foundations, right? But now when I see the foundations, I see them differently because when you have way more experience, someone who's going to give you like a piece of information, you have the knowledge to kind of customize it, make it your own, and do a lot with it. But when you don't necessarily have that experience yet, you just like, okay, no, I don't like this. If I keep doing this, it's going to be boring. You see what I mean? So me as a teacher now, what I'm trying to do at least is to, when I say, okay, try this or do this, I'm trying also to let you know why it's so important. And also trying to find a way when you try it for yourself, you realize, oh, actually, it can be fun if I approach it this way. Because I realize that the blockage is the perspective that you might already have about the drill. And if I can kind of remove that perspective, or not remove it, but help you see it differently, then you will find your own interest in it, right? So basically, that's how I try to deal with boredom. It's like, okay, yes, it sounds boring, but why am I doing it? For example, at the moment during my training, I work a lot with a metronome, and a metronome, it can be a very boring song, right? But but why am I doing it at the moment is also to even simplify even more my dance, to make basically every single movement that I'm going to be doing, I want to be increase the precision and timing with it. When you play music with a lot going on, you have the tendency to try to hit, pretty much everything in the music. And sometimes you would do extra movement that are not necessary. But if I put only a metronome and there is a very like simple beat going on, then I will quickly identify when I'm doing extra movement that are not necessary. So just by understanding why I'm doing it now, then it's not that boring anymore because I understand the power of it if I keep on doing it. So yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, I had this idea that, I would rather see a master do the most basic movement than somebody who's new do all of the most advanced movements, just because the way that the master is going to articulate and express that basic movement is going to have so much more presence in it. It's going to have so much more energy to it just because they're so well practiced. And there's that idea that the most advanced things are really just the fundamentals, but just done to the extent, the furthest extent of it.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, it takes time to uh to fully grasp that idea. But yeah, when you start getting to the point where you feel the desire to do it, it's a good sign. Because yeah, I think for any art, when you stay long enough in it, at some point you have to go back. It's like it brings you back. It brings you back to the essence of it, to kind of review it on a regular basis, and then each time that you go back to the fundamental, you see them. Why you see why they are actually fundamentals. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, as someone is like learning the fundamentals and like maybe somebody is just starting their dance journey, maybe like me, just like looking up tutorials on YouTube or tuning into your content, I think there is a strong desire to express your own voice, and I'm kind of curious what that process is of finding your own voice. There's so many moves. It kind of seems like everybody has already done everything there is to do with the body, so
Mhm.
what is the process of developing your own voice, and how do you tap into what is unique to you?
Yeah. I think um, understanding your own voice starts by understanding that you already have a unique voice and you don't necessarily need to look for it. It's a bit like when when we started talking, we never like as babies, as a kid, we never say like, okay, oh, am I talking the right way? Do I have the right voice? You see what I mean? We just talk, and it's almost like unconsciously we knew that we already have our unique voice, and then over time, the more we grow, we just have that voice, and then the moment I hear Brett talking, and I'm like, okay, that's Brett talking, but you did not necessarily work for that. See what I mean? It just happened very naturally. So it's there. It's just like the way you move. There's already your natural way of moving. So by just understanding that this is not something to look for, is instead something to know that it's already there and just get familiar with it over and over and over again. Now, once we understand that, we can be like, okay, if it's there, how can I get more familiar with it? This is where the exploration comes. This is where, freestyle is very important, to have moment where you spend time with yourself practicing. Because if the only time that you dance is exchanging with other people and or going to classes and things like that is great, but you almost always have like a to kind of compare what you are doing with someone else or learning from other people, and if you're not careful with that, you will only um, kind of grade your performances based on what you see or based on what other people will tell you, right? But when you actually spend time with yourself practicing in your room, you start connecting with your feelings and how you feel when you move this way, or why do I feel odd, when I look this way, or when I watch my video, oh, this type of movement I don't necessarily like them. Oh, I realize I do this pattern over and over again. Maybe I can find more depth into that pattern. So you start kind of reverse engineering yourself on a regular basis, and that's how you're not discovering your voice, but not actually you are. That's how you are discovering your voice, right? So you start understanding, okay, it was already there, but now I'm getting familiar with it and understand how to use it to my best capacity, I would say. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. For the people who are kind of disconnected from their bodies, who might be hearing this and are like, maybe I could open up to dance. Like that first session is going to be very interesting, I am sure. If you're very unfamiliar with how your body moves, and I am sure that there are some people who are maybe not going to like the way that they move. Maybe they have an idea
Hmm.
of what they should be doing or what it should look like. And they're like, wow, I am really silly right now. It seems like you'd also need a quality of kind of compassion for yourself and like a fundamental kindness. So could you
Hmm.
talk about that first session that somebody might have where it's just like a baby giraffe trying to walk, and any like negative feeling that comes up? How do people navigate that and still commit to the practice?
Yeah. I know it's hard to do what I'm gonna say, but I don't know any other answer to this. It's just you really need to get good at identifying when you are judging yourself and stop doing that. Right. And if we go back again to the example of a baby, when he's doing his first steps, he doesn't say, "Oh, I'm not walking like an adult." He's just walking, and he doesn't question it. He's just walking. So of course, when he's 10 years old and he look at when he was walking when he was 2 years old, he can see that, oh, I made progress, right? But back then, when he was walking, when he was only 2 years old, he did not judge that. He was just happy that he could walk, right? So for us, it's the same thing when we start moving. I know it's hard because we are way more self-aware, but your first type of movement, just embrace them because that's the way they're gonna look, you know? And yeah, of course, 5 years later, or even 2 years, or even 6 months later, maybe you will be like, oh, I actually made a lot of progress already. I could have, how can, how or maybe sometimes you would watch yourself and you kind of cringe about the way you are moving back then, but it's okay. But at first, the only thing that you need to do is to just dance, move with as with less judgment. Yeah, yeah, that's what I would say. It's not easy, but yeah, stop judging yourself.
Yeah, yeah, that's a tall order, but I mean, that also just kind of speaks to the power of dance in that it's an opportunity for you to stop judging yourself, and that's something I
Yeah.
try and whenever I talk to people, especially in my electronic music scene here, if anybody ever mentions like, wow, you're like really getting it, it's like this is an opportunity to explore yourself and to see what comes up. And yeah, again, it's a tall order, but it's something that's just so valuable for every other element of our life. And unless we give ourselves the opportunities to do that, it's really hard to just do that without putting yourself out there.
Yeah, and also even me saying this, I do end up, judging myself pretty often. But the only difference is now I'm just getting better at catching myself doing it, so I can get out of that state pretty fast, or at least faster than before. But yes, this thing can still happen. But as long as you create awareness about, okay, I know what is happening now, and I'm not going to fall into the trap, or at least not for 24 hours or 1 week. You keep on watching your last performance. You're like, oh my gosh, what did I do? And you don't need all of that. Yeah.
is it possible that there's useful information in that judgment too? That's something I've toyed with in terms of like, you recognize something within yourself that you're not a fan of, and there's like a kernel there of like something to improve on, but then we like pile on all of this like negative self-talk and we identify ourselves like I'm just a terrible person at this thing, but like at the heart of that is like this doesn't live up to an expectation I have, and I have that expectation because I love myself and I love this art and I want to express it well. Do you think that there's useful information in there, or do you think that it's just kind of an energy that is less helpful?
Yeah, I think it is useful as long as you can remain in the observer state. You know, if you are observing and you're like, oh, okay, this I think I can do better, and now you start processing how you could potentially do better with it, then that's great. You know, that's great. It's just the moment, and this one it happened very often. Is like you did around and you know you can do better and you're like, oh my gosh, why did I do this? And oh, I thought I had this, but now maybe I don't get it actually. But how long is going to take me, to get it? Because next time I want to do better, and then you go next time you don't do better, and then yes, this is where you start getting into that spiral. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like the excessive judgment, like the train of thought that ends up following after the initial assessment, it brings you really into your head, which is kind of like the last place you'd probably want to be when you're trying to move with your body. So I
Yeah.
feel like you can really feel it as like an energy, a level of attention, and it's like, oh, I'm really verbal right now up here, which means that I'm not paying attention down here. So it just seems
Hmm.
kind of self-defeating, and it's like bringing your attention back into your body because judgments don't really live in the body. They're not like sensations. They're just interpretations of sensations. And it's just like,
Hmm.
oh, you could also use that as a indicator or a notifier to just come back and like, all right, let's just do the drill again. How does it feel in the body? And keep moving forward with it.
Yeah, definitely. It can be hard at first, especially when you don't really know what is happening, and you just believe that you are just like that, meaning okay, I'm just someone who judge myself over all the time, and when I'm dancing and I get too much in my head, and you assume that you're just like that. This is when it can be difficult to get out of it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, we are coming up on time, but I do want to ask you something that I think is a great kind of cap on this. We often say that dance is an expression, right? What is it that we're expressing when we dance?
Hmm. Um, that's interesting because not too long ago I was practicing at home, and then my sister was around. And toward the end of the training, I called her to just come and film some of my rounds on my phone, right? So she came and I did about maybe 3 rounds, and she filmed all of them. And at the end, she looked at me and she said, it's funny, you are my brother, and I know you for so long, but when you are dancing, I feel like there's a part of you that I'm discovering. And I think it's probably this is what we are expressing. I think there's, in some ways, when I'm dancing, I kind of allow myself to be an extra version that I would probably not be in a normal scenario, right? And especially for someone like me who are pretty introverts, so I'm not like the loudest in the room and things like that. But when I'm dancing, you could see so many expression in my face, and my body movement and all of that. So I think this is what we express with dance. It's almost like we allow ourselves to be bigger than we are. I don't know, something like that. Yeah. So yeah, I think dance is almost like um a reflection of many different personalities that we have. Yeah. So yeah, probably that's what we are expressing. Yeah.
Wow. Amazing. I love that. Cool. So, yeah, we are around that time. So, I just want to say thank you so much, Nicole, for joining me and sharing your life story and your work and perspective. This has truly been a treat. And I want to give you a chance to just kind of plug how people can stay in touch with you and maybe work with you. I don't know if you do virtual stuff, or for the folks listening in the UK, how can people stay in touch?
I would say the easiest maybe to just check out the profile on Instagram, Beyond the Moves, and then from there you will start um, seeing, my work and the work of other dancers also that I invite to collaborate with and things like this. And then from there you will be able to see more things basically from the Instagram platform. You will also be able to see our website, our YouTube channel, and all of that. So yeah, start with the Instagram profile, and if that resonates with you, then you can also reach out to me on my personal account as well. Yeah.
I love that. You also have that master class. Is that still up? Is that still a thing?
Yeah, I do once a month. Once a month, I do a 4 hours workshop, but only in London. But
Okay.
we do
Yep.
also have an online program, like yeah, it's a more in-depth training plan for like a year or so, yeah. So that's online. Anyone can join, but this is on the website beyondthemove.com. And yeah, that's and also for people who just want to see, the our work is mainly YouTube for more in-depth training that I share on the YouTube platform. And yeah,
Love it. Awesome. All right. Well, Nicole, thank you so much again. Truly a
that's
pleasure.
great.
Yeah, we'll catch you next time. All right, that was the episode. Thank you so much for listening all the way through until the end. I really do make this show for you. So, once again, thank you, thank you, thank you. I guess that was 3 more times. That was Nicole Yudat. You can follow him at beyondthemoves.com or his Instagram of the same name. I recommend checking it out if you're into dance content. Otherwise, I hope you have a great holiday season. We'll catch you in another 2 weeks with a new, fresh episode.